Law Call, sponsored by the law firm of Reynolds, Horn, and Servant. And now, in the public interest, your rights, your calls live. Law Call.
Good evening and welcome to Law Call, everybody. I'm your host, Annette Sinclair. Well, no doubt during the summertime, there's more vacationers on the road, boaters, lots of outdoor activities, and sometimes personal injuries occur during this time more times than ever throughout the year. And that's what we're talking about tonight, personal injury, summertime injuries. If you have a question, give us a call. That is 478-742-1351. Again, 478-742-1351. We will take your questions live this evening. But first, let me tell you what's coming up on the docket. On July 6th, we'll be talking about DUIs. On the 13th, car and truck accidents. And on July 20th, we're talking about divorce and child custody. And helping me answer your calls tonight from the law firm of Reynolds, Horn, and Servant is Mr. John Fleming. Hello, dear.
Annette, how are you?
I'm doing
Great
good.
to be back here again, and I hope to have some good calls tonight, talking really not only about summertime injuries, but just personal injury questions in general.
Yeah.
But we do see a lot of injuries in the summertime. You got people on the water, a lot of people at the pool. You know, you having barbecues, things over at people's house, as well as just a lot more people on the roads this week in particular.
Yes.
With it being the holiday. Be careful out there on the roads. But if you do have a question about any personal injury, please give us a call. And tonight, helping us, going to be our guest tonight, is Danny Studstill. Danny's been on the show here. This is, I think, is his second time. He practices here in Macon. Also has offices in Valdosta and Nashville in South Georgia. And he practices, you know, I have the honor of working with my father-in-law, and Danny has the honor of working with his son and daughter-in-law. So we kind of have that in common, but glad to have you back.
Thank you for having me.
That's right.
Nepotism at its best.
That is right. Well,
well, listen, 4th of July is coming up, Danny. Let's talk about boating, because that's where we're seeing a lot of accidents occur. Let's talk about that, the changes that are coming up.
That is so true. Remember last year when we talked, Georgia had just passed in May of last year the new boating laws and the reform. And recall that we talked about Kyle Glover was the young 12-year-old that was killed on Lake Lanier with his stepfather being Usher. And I think that tragic incident is really what prompted some of that changes. You know, Senate Bill 136, John, really implemented in 2 stages. Some of the changes were last year, and some of them go into effect tomorrow night. One of the more significant ones is the training required, or the boater education course that the Department of Natural Resources sponsors. Some of the other significant portions of it, of the new law that go into effect, are lowering the blood alcohol contents for the boating under the influence from the 10% blood alcohol down to an 8%.
0.8, which is more in line with when you're in a vehicle, in a car.
Yes. And the statute, when you read the statute, really just mimics the regular vehicle DUI laws. It also has a provision that's a 0 tolerance for those folks under 21 years of age. So 0% blood alcohol if you're under 21.
Well, Georgia's really cracking down because, particularly, Danny, if you are a habitual offender when it comes to this kind of thing.
It does, and much as, John, with the driving under the influence for the vehicles, it has what I call a graduated punishment. First time it's this, second time it's this, third time is this. It has some community service, and it has some monetary penalties to get your license, your boating license, if you will, reinstated. So it's very, very similar to the DUI laws for the vehicles.
Exactly, and in the summertime, around the holidays, you've got a lot of boats on the water, a lot of people who may not regularly operate a boat that are getting on the water just because it's the holidays, so it's important to be careful out there. But make sure you understand the rules before you get out there on the water. You may want to check on your insurance for your boat, things like that, just in case something happens, just to see if there will be any coverage to protect you and to protect those people out there on the water.
Some of the statistics will really blow your mind, John and Annette. In 2013, this is nationwide, and this is not just talking about the vessels or the boats, because it breaks them down into categories. But let's talk about what the law calls the personal watercraft, or what we call the jet skis.
That's right.
Which have been around since the mid-'80s. Last year, nationwide, there were 36 fatalities from jet skis. And I believe we had one in Augusta a couple weekends ago on a jet ski. But we had also in 2013, we had 601 people injured from jet skis. So it is a hot topic. The legislature did well in seeing the need, and the education is the key.
Absolutely.
Sure.
But it also puts some teeth in the law regarding the parents.
Because we talked about child endangerment earlier.
We did, child endangerment. If you allow your child or your young teenager to illegally ride the jet ski, then you're guilty of a crime too. You're guilty of that child endangerment and can be prosecuted also.
And you said we were losing 10 individuals a day, Danny?
Yes, we were also talking about water in summer times and swimming pools, and I reminded you that Georgia had adopted the International Building Code this year pertaining to swimming pools and pool safety. And one of the requirements is that you have a 48-inch fence around those pools. And some of the numbers on the unintentional drowning were really mind-boggling. Nationwide, 10 people a day die from unintentional drowning. 10 people every day.
And how many of those are kids?
And of those 10 people, 2 were children under the age of 14. And these numbers came from the Center for Disease Control in Atlanta. And of those 10 people a day, easily to fix this, can't swim.
Yeah.
Is the leading cause.
Yes.
The Red Cross, your local clubs have YMCA, Boys
exactly.
Club, have that. The second leading cause of that was no fence. And then the third one ties right back into the boating, the alcohol.
Sure.
Tied in.
So 10 people a day die from unintentional drowning.
So that's swimming pools. Now let's talk about America's pastime, because you were talking about a very interesting case, Danny.
Okay.
America's favorite pastime
is summertime hot dogs
and baseball. And you got an interesting case that's going on right now.
Yeah, we were discussing, and you know, John, as they say, what is it? Bad facts make
bad law.
Yeah, bad facts make bad law. Have a case that's pending before the Georgia appellate courts now, and it's a case where mother and daddy carried a young child to the Braves baseball game. A foul ball, they were seated behind third base dugout, and a foul ball came, struck the child in the head, and the child has some serious permanent brain injuries. And the case centers on, is the Braves baseball team liable for the small child's injuries? And you know, as John and I were talking, on the back of your ticket, it says you assume the risk.
Exactly.
Risk of injury.
And the risk
which
of
is in
injury.
defense in a claim for injuries or for negligence on the part of the Braves and the stadium, and as well as, I'm sure, you know, that there are a lot of entities at play there.
Yeah.
And you can always sit behind home plate where the screen is, where you would be A-OK. But this case raises for the first time whether or not that is a valid defense, the assumption of the risk.
It'll be interesting to see how that plays out, for
And
sure.
it's,
Very much so.
In the Georgia Supreme Court.
We're going to be tuned into that one. Okay, we're going to take a break, everybody. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to Law Call with award-winning broadcaster Annette St. Clair and guidance from personal injury law firm of Reynolds, Horn, and Servant, including the knowledge and experience of personal injury attorney Carl Reynolds, selected by the authors of Best Lawyers in America with more than $335 million awarded to his clients. Plus, attorney Wendell Horn, designated as a super lawyer, with millions of dollars in verdicts and settlements for victims of 18-wheeler accidents. And attorney B.J. Servant, who has focused his practice on handling catastrophic injuries resulting from car and truck accidents. Your rights, your calls. Live, 13 WMAZ Law Call.
Welcome back, everybody. We are talking about personal injuries, summertime injuries. We see more accidents more than ever, John, during summertime.
Sure.
But we're talking about personal injuries tonight. But let's go back and visit boating again, Danny, because there's some more information that you had that we were talking about earlier. John goes out a lot with his kids, and we were talking about the life vests. Sure. And how important it is that they must wear them under the age of
13.
13. If you're on a boat, you have to have a life vest on. And then I think we were talking about some of the requirements for operating the personal watercraft, the jet skis, and how those have changed.
Sure.
Again, with the ultimate goal of having better educated boaters on the water, more experienced boaters to prevent these types of injuries. Because a lot of times with boating accidents, there can be no insurance that would cover these kind of wrecks. Your coverage that you have for your vehicle, a lot of those policies will exclude watercraft, but it's a good thing to check your policy. Call your agent, check to see if you're going to be doing a lot of boating, if you spend a lot of time on the water. Try to find out what coverages you need to protect you and to protect those other people out there on the water should something happen.
Yeah, read that policy. Fine print, John.
Exactly.
Read the policy.
Okay. As we said, the life vests are now required for anyone under 13 years of age, whether it be a personal watercraft or just a regular sized boat. We also talked about that age 16 and older, you have to have the ID. And proof that you completed the boating training course offered by the DNR. Age 12 to 15, you have to have two things. You can go ahead and take the course at 12 to 15, or you have to have an adult supervision. Okay. And the law really talks about what that adult supervision is.
Sure.
Okay.
You can't be on the beach and your child out there. It's within a zone of safety that you
got you.
Okay, I think
we got a caller.
Call. Yes, it's Derek from Kathleen. Hi, Derek.
What can we do for you?
Doing well.
Great.
How are you?
I'm doing great.
Go ahead with your question, honey.
I had a question about that new safety training course and what exactly that entailed and where that could be taken, and if that was a requirement.
Okay.
The best thing to do is probably contact I would think the Department of Natural Resources. I remember I took it when I was young. You contact it, and there's a classroom element to it, and you sit down, you take the class, you have to take a test at the end, and once you take it, they give you a card that says that you have taken that. Is that correct, Danny?
That's correct, and I believe the DNR has now recently updated their system where you can take it online, much like the hunter safety course for the hunting laws.
Yeah, so contact the DNR. They've got a great website. Check it out, and they should be able to help you out with that. But it's great for your kids. All right, and that's Derek. So give us a call tonight. We're talking about personal injuries in general, specifically summertime injuries, because we tend to see an increase in accidents. People are outside. People are being, they're on the road a lot more, traveling for vacation. And we've been talking a lot about boats, but a lot of car accidents happen when the roads are congested. You got a lot of traffic fatalities that happen on holiday weekends. And so Danny and I were talking, sometimes even what you might think is a single vehicle accident, it's a good idea to sit down and talk to an attorney if something has happened, because there can be responsible parties there. It could be a road design issue. There could be
thread design on the tire. I'm telling you, one of my first stories I remember doing as a reporter, Danny, is the thread. It was so hot, and it changes so much, with the tires. You could literally see sparks, and that could spark something. So we were talking about the wrecks, the one-car wreck, and what could happen.
True. Road design is an area that the average person does not think about. Tire safety, tread separation is another area. Also with GM doing all the recalls on the ignition switch, the reason for the one-car accident could be loss of power from the ignition, lots of reasons. So you made a very good point, John. Just because it's a one-car wreck, do not think there's someone that could not be responsible for that wreck.
Exactly, and I get asked all the time, you know, what should I do if I get into an accident? The first thing you want to do, of course, is contact 911, get medical help there for anybody who may be injured. Once you've secured and made sure that everybody is okay, you want to make sure you exchange information with the other party, contact the police, an investigating agency, to come in and take a look at it. If you're able to take any photographs, you know, if there are any witnesses there, you want to get those people's names after the medical situation has been taken care of. And it's always important to contact your insurance company, because you have a duty to contact them and let them know. And if you have injuries and you're having problems with your property damage, go and sit in and talk to an attorney. It won't cost you anything to sit down, know what your rights are, make sure that you do everything on the front end, so that if you get into a situation later on where maybe litigation arises, that you've got an experienced attorney who is handling your case, and make sure that you can actually sit down with the attorney that's handling your case. You see a lot of commercials on TV, a lot of lawyers advertising, but if you can't sit down and talk to your attorney face to face when you want to, then you need to think hard about whether or not that person is truly giving you the best representation that you can have. I mean, we see a lot of it, and you want to make sure that you've got somebody that when you need to get to them, you can get in there and talk to them.
Yeah, and you mentioned property, John, so let's stay outside for a minute and let's talk about your home. And you know, you've got all the 4th of July activities coming up. Danny, you've got all these barbecues. Talk to me about the difference between, some people may not know the difference between licensee and invite.
National Building Code, so your pool's going to be safe. It's going to have that fence.
Okay.
Not only does that building code talk about the requirements for pools, it talks about the hot tub you've invited me over to share, okay? So some of the same rules and requirements on that hot tub are that it has a lockable lid, okay, to keep the kids out. Gotcha. That it has certain weight limits. I think it's 25, you know, the lid will hold up a 25-year or 25-pound kid or a 225-pound adult. Gotcha. That go crashing in. So you invite me over, your hot tub is safe, your pool is safe, but it's hot in summertime, and you have some refreshments in the cooler of an alcoholic nature. Now, do you have any liability if you offer me an alcoholic drink and I drink a couple beers and then I decide I'm ready to go home and drive?
Hold that thought before I answer you. I'm gonna think about that one. We're gonna take one break. I'm gonna come back and give you an answer. We'll be right back, everybody. Welcome back, everybody. If you'd like to reach Danny, here's how. He's right here in Macon. You can reach him at 478-745-9002 or visit Danny's website at thestudshillfirm.com. And John is right here in Macon as well. He's with Reynolds, Horn, and Servant. You can reach him at 478-405-0300 or visit John's website at reynoldsinjurylaw.com. We're talking about personal injuries, summertime injuries, and we've got Carrie from Lake Sinclair on the line. Hi, Carrie.
Hey, Annette, I just wanted to say it's great to educate the kids and all, but you'd really be surprised how many adults do not know the rules of the lake.
Absolutely.
And be careful when you, holiday weekends, when you turn somebody loose in that boat. Remember the liability and what it can cause if that certain tragic situation happens. People just think.
That's right. It takes an adult standing up sometimes.
Do not boat impaired.
Absolutely. That's right. Thank you for that. Thank you for that, Carrie. That's why we spend a great deal of time.
Everybody have a good 4th and a safe 4th.
Thank you, Carrie. Same to you, Carrie. Our next caller is Steve from Macon. Hi, Steve.
Good evening.
Hi, Steve. Good evening. Go ahead with your...
We rent a house at the beach every summer for a couple of weeks and have various family and friends come in and visit during that period of time. Where does the liability lie or not lie in case of someone having an accident or God forbid, getting hurt or something?
You're talking about any rental property?
That's correct.
Okay.
We were talking about just before we went to break, Danny.
I mean, like in any premises case, the liability potentially lies with the owner of the premises. Now, with a rental property, you may have issues with a property management company that actually does the maintenance and takes care of the place, but ultimately the owner of the premises would be the potentially liable party if there's a hazardous condition on the premises that caused an injury. And with any premises case, you're going to be looking at the relative knowledge between the parties, the owner of the premises and the injured person. And Georgia is pretty tough on premises cases because you have to be able to prove that the owner, occupier of the premises had superior knowledge of that hazardous condition that would be superior to any knowledge that the injured party would have. So it's really kind of a tough standard in a premises case. If something does happen, the best thing you can do is go out and make an appointment, sit down with an attorney, go in, let them tell you kind of what the law is and see what, if anything, can be done to help you.
Thank you for your question, Stephen. And quickly, before we get to Margaret, Danny, you were kind of touching on that before we went to the break.
Yes, and we were talking about if you invited me over and we shared some refreshments. You know, when I come to your house, basically I'm a licensee.
Yes.
And basically, other than intentionally hurting me, you have no liability.
Okay. Okay.
Versus an invitee is when I'm on your property for a financial reward to you.
Yeah, there's some benefit. Sure.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, we time for one more caller, and it is Margaret from Alamo. Hi, Margaret.
Hello.
Hi, Margaret. Go ahead with your question.
This Thanksgiving will be 2 years ago. I fell at the hospital in a local city, and a local, I should say, nearby, in a hole on their ramp, going up the emergency ramp. And I went in and I spent 5 hours in the emergency room for them to see me because I could hardly walk. It messed up my leg and it messed up my arm real bad. I called an attorney, talked with her, and she's supposed to be taking care of the case, but I haven't heard. I've called and left several messages from her to her. Haven't received any callback. Also, I've called the hospital, and they didn't even pay the bill.
So you want to know what recourse you have, Margaret?
Well, Margaret, if you're having, communication is so important with attorneys and clients, and I tell my clients when I meet with them at the very get-go, it's a two-way street. You've got to communicate with me, and I'm going to communicate with you. But if you can't call up and make an appointment to come in and see your attorney in a reasonable period of time. Now, sometimes we get busy. You may not can come in the next day on the dot, but if they can't get you in and sit down and answer your questions, then you need to think about whether or not that person is providing the representation that you need. You know, there's a lot of attorneys out there that are advertising. You see their commercials, and you will never see that attorney in that office. So if you can't sit down and talk to your attorney, then you're well within your rights to change your legal representation.
And speaking of call, I'm going to run Danny's phone number one more time before we leave everybody. Danny's right here in Macon, and you can reach him at 478-745-9002 or visit Danny's website at studstillfirm.com. And John is right here in Macon as well, 478-405-0300. Visit John's website at reynoldsinjurylaw.com. Thank you so much for staying up with us, everybody. Have a terrific week and a safe holiday weekend.
Happy 4th of July.
Happy 4th of July.
Opinions expressed on Law Call are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of 13 WMAZ staff or management, nor any legal or judicial entity. The legal information supplied in this broadcast is general information only and is not intended to be legal advice for any given situation. Do not rely on broadcast information without consulting an attorney. Contingent attorney's fees refers only to those fees charged by the attorneys for legal services. Such fees are not permitted in all types of cases. Court costs and other additional expenses of legal action usually must be paid by the client.